Gary Erickson. And we always assume, Gary, that no one knows what Executive Search Partners is, but we know exactly what it is. And what is it, Gary?
Executive Search Partners is an IT-focused senior level IT search company. Companies hire us to fill positions like maybe senior manager of IT on up to director, VP, CIO. We've also been asked by clients, though, to fill other positions. So right now, in addition to IT positions, we're working on a controller position and a director of HR for two different companies. So we're really good at IT positions, though.
Yes, you are. And so let's talk about that very thing. That's the first bullet point here I have in front of me. What is the state of the market for senior level IT professionals?
So let me preface this with a quick background. 2002 was a really good year for IT professionals to get hired. It was a really good year for Executive Search Partners. And then people started getting worried about inflation and the economy. And I think a lot of the CFOs of companies said, let's slow down on our hiring. So 2023 has been a pretty slow year for hiring of IT people. However, a number of people, including Gartner and some other companies, are predicting that the last third of this year, the CFOs are going to loosen the purse strings, and we should start seeing some increases in demand for IT people. And we're beginning to see that. In the last, we usually do simultaneously anywhere from 5 to 20 searches at a time, and simultaneously in various stages from initiation to wrapping them up. Right now, we picked up 3 new searches in the last week, so we're beginning to see a little bit of surge in IT hiring. Our prediction is that the last quarter of this year is going to be reasonably good for finding new IT positions.
All righty. Did you find those talking points, Matt? No?
No, I did not, but I think I remember one of them is what tips do you have for people seeking employment in the senior IT position? I guess there were 3 things you wanted to talk about in that score.
Let's talk about how you go about finding a position. There's 3 ways to find a position. One is you go to recruiters like us, right? And you say, hey, I'm looking for a job, and do you have anything for us? And what you're going to find is most recruiters are going to say no, because we all handle a small segment of the marketplace. But if we have something of interest, we'll talk to you about it. Most of the time, most recruiters will not respond to those inquiries unless they have a specific job. Number 1 is a way to find a job is through recruiters. Number 2 is networking. Networking tends to be the one that works the best. And I'll come back and give a real quick clue on networking in just a second. And number 3 is applying online. And the one thing about networking that you have to do is the way you network is you first start with your friends. Right? People you know, professional acquaintances, and say, hey, I'm looking for a new job. Here's my background. Do you have some time to maybe spend 20 minutes on the phone with me talking about it? And a lot of people will be willing to help. And at the end of the phone call, what you want to get from them is 3 things. You want to get the names of maybe some recruiters you can call, maybe other people. Number 2, to other people you could talk to, or maybe companies that they know that might be a good target. That's the end of that first call. The most important thing about networking is you've got to maintain that network of people you've talked to. Meaning, once you talk to them, stay in touch with them. Every 2 or 3 weeks, send them a brief email saying, I'm still here. I'm still interested. Because a lot of you don't want them to forget about you if some job comes up. And most people who are spending time talking to you are also going to be interested in your progress. So our number 1 tip on networking is make sure you maintain your network.
Ask your question now, Matt.
Oh, I don't have the talking points.
What is your top 3 tips for someone doing a job search?
Yes.
Well, let's go back to those 3 ways about finding a recruiter. One of the top 3 tips is when you network with somebody, maintain that network and stay in touch with them. If you really do networking really well, you might end up with 200 or 300 people that you network with. You can't stay in touch with that many, but maybe pick the top 30 or 40. But in networking, our number one tip is to stay in touch with your network, and networking is probably the number one way you're going to find a job. Our number two tip is when you apply for a job, whether it's through a recruiter or whether it's through networking or whether it's through a job posted online, especially online. People tell us nobody gets back to me when I post online. I never hear anything. When you apply for a job, especially if you apply online, the person who's reviewing your resume will be getting so many different resumes, they really don't have time to get back to you. So if they don't see on the first page of your resume that you're a fit for the position, they're going to left swipe. You want them to right swipe. You want them to say, hey, this person looks like they might be a good candidate. Well, what can you do to give yourself a chance of being right swiped? And besides having maybe a pretty picture, I'm trying to be funny here, what your resume's got to look pretty to them. I've never thought of that analogy before, but it sort of works in this case. And what I mean by that is right near the top of your resume, insert a section that says qualifications for a position or whatever position you're applying for, and list 5 dot points, each of them no more than 2 lines each, about why you're a fit for that position. All right. One is, have you done the job before? For example, if you're applying for a CIO position, you say, hey, I've been a CIO for this kind of company with this kind of responsibility. Number 2, have you worked in their industry? You've got to have industry experience for the most part. If you want to transition from one industry to another, you're not going to do it by applying online. You're going to do it by networking into somebody who knows you, who's willing to take a chance of hiring you. But these days, IT is so critical to the success of an organization that most companies don't want to hire somebody who has not worked in their industry and doesn't understand the dynamics and what they need to know about the industry to be the top IT person in the company. So number 1, you got 5 dot points. Number 1 might be I've been a CIO before. Number 2, I've got experience in your industry. Number 3 might be I have experience in the kind of technology you're looking for. And number 4 and 5 might be some good examples about why you've done some things that are innovative, creative, and beneficial to the company that you're applying for the job for.
Matt?
Okay, so if you could please tell us a little bit about what skills are most in demand these days.
There's a wide range of, I will answer your question directly. There's a wide range of skills that people are looking for, but if it's a senior IT position, the number 1 skill that people want is, do you know our industry? When I talk to you, can you talk to me about how what you do with IT is going to improve the business? And there's a whole range of things. People talk about digitization. What does that mean? They talk about analytics. What does that mean? You need to understand how, when you apply digitization or expanded ERP or customer contacts or any of the other kind of tools that people are talking about, not, geez, I put in a database that does all this neat stuff, but how did what you do either increase sales or decrease costs?
Let me ask you also, as part of the IT job resume that you put there, does cybersecurity play a role in that? I mean, everybody and his brother, all the bad guys are very good at what they do. If you're like the CTO, do they also want you to be essentially the CISO or not?
Well, the CISO positions, in fact, thank you for reminding me of that, because I was going to take a side detour and talk about highly technical positions like a CISO position. There's a huge demand for security people at all levels from what we can see. And you start with the CISO. The CISO position, I think, is probably the most difficult job in IT because it's a job that is purely cost driven. All right, you're adding layers of cost to provide increased security so people can't hack your company, so they can't deny service, so they can't steal your information. How do you do that? You've got to put in place robust IT capabilities. You've got to have teams of people that are monitoring what's going on with the network and attacks. You've got to be able to respond quickly in case something happens. That costs money. And if you're the CISO convincing your board of directors that this is money well spent, it's hard to justify that, because if you do your job well, you're never going to see the costs associated with a successful cybersecurity attack.
However, if you
yes.
get a hit, that's a whole different thing, right?
Right. And that's what you're selling, is you're selling fear.
Yeah.
Well, we never had one of those things in our history. Why is somebody going to attack us now? Well, what happens is they do. Right? The number of companies in Michigan alone that have been hacked, who have had cybersecurity attacks, you would probably have a better statistic on that, either Matt or Mike, than I would. But it's
That's
huge.
a lot of them. I mean, and if there's now, according to the new rules, if you're a publicly traded company, you have to disclose it. If you're a private company, you don't. So it's really hard to get your arms around it, because there's a lot of private companies that don't say a thing about it, you know?
Right. And I'm aware of some of those. In fact, I've been recruited. I've been asked to find people with a certain skill set, sometimes CIO, because the previous CIO didn't do their job in preventing them from being hacked, where they had to pay millions of dollars to unlock their computers.
Yep.
Yeah, that's I just read about one at the place where my son went to graduate school, so I just alerted him. But the University of Minnesota, I guess, just had a huge data breach.
Well, so did Michigan about a month ago. Shut down their computer system. They were real vague about it, but it's pretty obvious to me it was a ransomware attack. And they were down for a couple of days. I think they scrubbed the whole system, but I can't get anybody to talk to me about it.
And they're not going to, because there are multiple ways. I mean, sort of hurts their reputation, but that's a really good example of it. I'm sure they've all had CISOs. I'm sure the CISOs have all stood in front of the board of directors and say, you got to spend this money, or someday we're going to get attacked, and it's going to be a ransomware, or somebody's going to take our computers down for quite a while. And this is what the costs are if that happens. But you can't always convince the board of directors to spend the money. So I think CISOs are a tough job. For the most part, though, you've got to relate what you're doing in IT to how you can improve the business, and that's the number one thing that skill set people are looking for in an IT person these days.
Well, we're
senior level IT person.
Coming down the home stretch. So, Matt, ask that question.
Oh, yes. If people want more information from Gary Erickson, how do they go about getting it?
Well, if you go to our webpage, you can go to www.execsearchpartners.com, and you can see how to contact any of the 6 executive search partners that are out there, and pick somebody somebody might live in your local area. But we have people located in North Carolina, Florida, New Orleans, Michigan, and of course, Colorado part of the time and Florida part of the time.